Rocksteady Coffee Co. is a producer of luxury, gourmet, single estate and pesticide-free 100% Jamaica Blue Mountain coffee cultivated in the UNESCO World Heritage designated Blue and John Crow Mountains of Jamaica. It's raising money in part via JP Jenkins, a UK platform for private and unlisted companies. I am delighted to be joined by the founder and chief executive, Orville Ricardo Forbes. So Orville, talk to me about what the company has at the moment and the quality of the coffee that you produce.
Sure thing. Thank you for having me. Rocksteady is a vertically integrated single estate Jamaica Blue Mountain coffee house. We grow, process, roast, and distribute everything ourselves, from the UNESCO protected Blue and John Crow Mountains. Our coffees are pesticide free, spring water semi-washed, sun-dried and separated into microlots by soil type and elevation, giving rise to rare flavors like chocolate, cherries, florals, citrus, and pineapple edges microlots. All together produces our single signature Rocksteady Gold coffee. This is luxury coffee at its finest, limited by terroir, protected by regulation, and positioned for sustainable high margin growth.
And just from the words you're using, I'm salivating already, Orville. But what I hadn't appreciated is that most of the country's beans are exported to Japan, which is a country typically associated with tea. And I'm just wondering, is that where your beans go to as well?
Japan traditionally buys most of Jamaica's crops, but Rocksteady took a different path. We serve Jamaica's local market, its 4 million annual visitors, and premium consumers in the UK, EU, Canada, and the US, who value provenance, microlots, and terroir. This tracks with global trends. Studies showing the specialty and premium segment expanding by double digits year on year as consumers trade up for traceability and elevated at-home experiences.
So Orville Ricardo, you started this company 13 years ago, way back in 2012. So I'm just wondering, what's your background and what makes you qualified to lead a premium coffee business?
That's a very good question. I came from a Jamaican family with more than 200 years of farming history. My background spans system design, aviation, and 20 years building a real estate investment company. Disciplines that are centered on capital efficiency, operational control, and long-range strategy. I also managed a major coffee house, which grounded me in consumer behavior. Leading Rocksteady is a combination of disciplined entrepreneurship and a lived connection to the land. And importantly, we scale through people. I work with trusted individuals who contribute meaningfully.
So in terms of contributions, I'm just wondering how much you're raising in total, including your exposure to JP Jenkins and how the money raised will be used.
That's a good question. We're raising 3.4 million, as phase one of our expansion. So primary capital is via private placements, secondary liquidity is via JP Jenkins as founder held shares. And those funds expand the farm from 17.5 acres, which we currently now own, to 40 acres, increase production to 55 tons of roasted coffee, which is important, not the green beans, and deepen our UK and EU distribution to support our luxury-aligned brand campaign.
So I understand that you're looking to buy a neighbouring farm and also kind of make the whole venture a consumer experience, agri-educational tourism business too. I'm just wondering, are there any challenges in achieving this, particularly as you are operating in a protected UNESCO site?
Yeah, and we embrace those responsibilities. Our methods, which includes organic weeding, canopy shade, water conservation, and spring water processing, all directly tracks with conservation principles. The neighboring farm acquisition brings sensitive land under regenerative stewardship and supports our low impact educational agritourism plans.
So I'm learning more about you, but most investors know more about the cafe and volume-driven coffee models. So I'm wondering, how does Rocksteady define a premium, high-margin approach, and why this could possibly resonate with global consumers?
That's a good question. Scarcity is built right into the terrier. Our advantage comes firmly from single estate control, vertical integration, sustained production, and high barriers to entry. It's extremely high, the barriers to entry. Our consumers aren't buying caffeine. They're buying quality, provenance, terroir, authenticity, and connection.
So to me, it sounds as though they're buying an experience, an entire experience. Orville, so which luxury brands, or just which brands, have shown interest in buying your coffee and any associated product lines?
We're intentional about partnerships. In Jamaica, we sell through premium grocers. In Canada, through La Cinq Saison, Metro Plus in Westmount, some of the most premium stores in Canada. We're assessing, stores in the UK such as Waitrose, Booths, luxury hotel groups, diaspora gourmet stores, and high-end farm shops. Every partner must align with our long-term premium positioning.
Okay, so plenty of potential partners, but I'm just wondering about potential competition. Is there any franchise risk out there, copycats, competitors?
Barriers to entry in Blue Mountain Coffee are exceptionally high. Limited land, strict regulation, long tree maturity timeline, and a UNESCO protected zone. You really can't franchise authenticity, and you can't replicate the terrier.
Yeah. Now, Rocksteady Coffee, I know, is aiming to become the only Blue Mountain coffee brand to achieve net carbon neutrality by 2020. There's a lot of skepticism around the 2030 deadline, but how will this be achieved in your business?
Through regenerative agriculture, or organic soil renewal, expanded shade trees plays a critical role in that effort. We use zero pesticide practices in our farming husbandry, dry well water systems, biodiversity protection, and eventually verifiable carbon offset partnerships. The farm will increasingly function as a natural carbon sink.
So that, more or less, you're in control of that, but what you aren't in control of is the weather. I'm just wondering, how weatherproof is your business? Because I'm thinking about the devastation that Hurricane Melissa caused in October.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Coffee is a very resilient plant. Melissa devastated Western Jamaica, unfortunately, and our hearts and prayers go out to the folks who have, lost properties and farms, etc. Our farm is protected by elevation, canopy. We have our farm is sort of shade grown, if you will. Expanding to 40 acres further strengthens our geographic resilience. But it is essentially the Blue Mountains, if you will, that acts as a protective barrier for systems that have, in the past has really tried to devastate, I suppose, central and eastern Jamaica. But the Blue Mountain has provided a natural downdraft for keeping systems out at bay.
Okay, right. So I'm understanding more about the terroir and the weather, and we've established that you're wanting to raise. But is shareholder money in good hands? How much money has the business generated, and how much do you intend to make by fiscal 2027?
Yes, they are. We're disciplined and efficient. Demand is already strong across Jamaica, Canada, the US, and the UK, with minimal marketing. With expanded production and the addition of lodges, cafe operation, farm tours, and gift card revenue by financial year 2027, we expect a meaningful revenue scaling and strong profitability.
Excellent. And finally, Orville, what's in a name? Why Rocksteady?
Rocksteady sits between ska and reggae. Everyone knows reggae. A moment when Jamaica's rhythm slowed and found its depth, really. In 2012, It was the 50th anniversary of Rocksteady era, and I founded the company at that time. And it was as a tribute to that cultural optimism and my own family history, centuries long connection to the land. And so for me, Rocksteady is an exceptional coffee, not just an exceptional coffee, but also a feeling and sort of a partnership and a commitment to building something enduring.
Beautiful. Thank you very much indeed. Orville
My
Ricardo
pleasure.
Forbes, founder, chief executive of Rocksteady Coffee. It has been a pleasure indeed. Thank you.
Thank you.